Always glad to have back my friend, my senator. He's a great guy doing great work up in D.C. It's Senator Ted Cruz. How are you, Ted?
I'm doing terrific, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream, man. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you along for the ride. I want to get to a ton of topics, and your time is pretty tight. But I have to start with something off the beaten path a little bit. I don't know if you saw my tweet earlier. Yesterday, former President Obama took credit for the economy. He literally said 11 years ago, I said all this, I paved the way with my $1 trillion that he threw out the window. I paved the way for all this growth that we're seeing. Basically, pat me on the back. Look how great I am. Ted, I got to get your thoughts on that.
Well, it would be reminiscent of Jimmy Carter saying that he won the Cold War because his foreign policy was so disastrously bad and America was so weak that it caused the country to elect Ronald Reagan, which in turn won the Cold War. That's about the same as Barack Obama.
I mean,
his economic policies were a train wreck.
Yeah, they were. And they were all shovel-ready jobs, Ted. And then later he admitted there were no shovel-ready jobs. And nobody, you see all these news stories, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, Newsweek, they all picked this up and said, this is a result of Obama. Now, maybe I'm remiss, and you're smarter than I am. You could fix this if I get this wrong. Isn't he the one that said the manufacturing jobs are gone, they're not coming back? Isn't he the one that actually pushed millions and millions of Americans onto entitlements? Isn't he the one under which the workforce participation was at historic lows, which, by the way, helped his unemployment rate? The unemployment rate now is even lower than when he was in office, and the workforce participation is higher. Ted, what am I missing?
Every syllable of every word you just said is right. And not only that, Obama said there's nothing we can do to fix it, and he said it would take a magic wand to bring those jobs back. It would take a magic wand to bring manufacturing jobs back. It would take a magic wand to get the 3% GDP growth. Well, you know what, Mr. Obama, it wasn't a magic wand. It was just something called cutting taxes, simplifying the tax codes, repealing job-killing regulations. It works. It works over and over and over again. And Obama and Bernie and other big government socialists don't understand that.
It is Senator Ted Cruz. Always great to have you live here on the program. Just very quickly, just to finish that up, $1 trillion again that was not wisely spent, and all those numbers that I said are absolutely true. But also, you mentioned this, he raised taxes, which caused employers to lower pay, drop employees. Then, for God's sakes, Obamacare comes in that forced employers to make a decision. Either you give everybody health care if you've got over 50 employees, or lay people off or fire them. Many businesses went out of business. Many doctors stopped being doctors and looked for other careers because they couldn't afford to stay in business. And he lied about how much savings we would allegedly have. I don't get it. I mean, I know why he's doing it. So tomorrow night now, the Democrats can all claim this is Obama's economy. Biden already tried that, as a matter of fact.
Well, Pags, you're not being fair. I mean, somebody has to bankroll Acorns stealing votes and committing voter fraud.
Oh, that's true.
Somebody has to bankroll Solyndra and other corrupt companies that go bankrupt because they make Democratic donors wealthy.
Right.
Look, this is all nonsense. For 8 years, we had economic stagnation. Let me talk for a moment to every young person who's listening to this broadcast. Under Barack Obama, young people coming out of school couldn't get jobs. Under Barack Obama, you had young people having to move into their parents' garages because they couldn't get started. In fact, if you look at, I remember the Wall Street Journal did an article talking about a lost generation because young people who didn't get their first job didn't get their second job, and it ended up the income effects for young people who came out of school during the Obama administration will be with them for the rest of their lives. You contrast it now. Today we have the lowest youth unemployment in 70 years. If you care about young people, if you care about jobs, you don't want to embrace the big government, high taxes, high regulation, failed policy of Obama. And by the way, that's what every one of these numbskulls running for president as a Democrat is advocating doing again.
Yeah, it is Senator Ted Cruz. Always a pleasure to have you on live today on the program. I want to circle back to the economy. If we have time, we may not. But I want to go coronavirus because people are really legitimately afraid of what's going on. We don't know how many people have died in China. We've heard really bad stories that it could be thousands and thousands. We don't know. But now we do know that it's here on our shores. What are we doing about this?
Yeah. Well, listen, by any measure, this thing is serious and it's dangerous. According to the publicly available numbers, there are over 71,000 cases of individuals infected with the virus, and we know of over 1,700 fatality deaths that have happened. Most of those numbers are based on what China is admitting to. We also know the Communist government of China lies, and they do so frequently. So the numbers could be substantially worse than that. It is a public health crisis, and I will say I think the president and the administration, they are treating it like the public health crisis it is. This past week, I organized a briefing for members of the Senate Commerce Committee where we heard from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the Health and Human Services Department, and the World Health Organization about the steps that are taken. The president and the administration did the right thing by halting commercial airline traffic to and from China. That needed to be done. I spoke with the president a day or two after he did it. He asked what I thought about that. I said that's exactly the right thing.
Right.
Yes, we have a lot of commerce with China. Yes, that has significant economic impacts, but nobody wants to see a potential pandemic that could endanger or lose the lives of thousands of Americans. So I think it was right to halt commercial air traffic, and our health professionals are working seriously. They need to work even more seriously to contain this virus, to learn how to treat it, to learn how to prevent its transmission, and to keep people safe.
On the phone, it's Senator Ted Cruz. We always appreciate the time and the access. Let me go to Soleimani. There's a move that's happening in the Senate that you're backing. I guess the president mentioned it during the State of the Union. What is this?
On Soleimani, what we actually had a vote last week where I introduced a resolution to commend the brave men and women of our military who took out Soleimani, to commend the brave men and women of our intelligence services, and to commend President Trump on a successful action taking out the world's most dangerous terrorist, a man who was responsible for a minimum of 603 deaths of U.S. servicemen and women. Now, that resolution, that amendment that we voted on, was taken almost word for word from a resolution the Senate passed congratulating President Obama when the armed services took out Osama bin Laden.
Right.
The bin Laden resolution passed the Senate 100-0. Every Republican, every Democrat supported it.
Of course.
The resolution I introduced, it passed the Senate as well, and it got 64 votes. But I'm sorry to say, 34 Democrats voted no. They were not willing to stand with our servicemen and women against the world's most dangerous terrorists. It was a really sad and unfortunate moment, but I'm glad we got it passed for the rest of us to say thank you for the heroism and for the major victory.
That's so crazy to me. And by the way, great resolution, Ted. But what's crazy to me is that you and I both didn't like the majority of what Obama did when it came to his policies and the way that he ran the country. His agenda for us didn't make sense. But when he got bin Laden, you and I stood in the highest mountain with him and said, you damn straight we got bin Laden. I mean, why can't the left in this day and age, it's not that long after, this is 8 years later, why can't we in this day and age, the Democrats look at you, look at Trump and say, look, I don't like a lot of what you guys say or do, but damn, you got one here.
Look, I'd say two things. Number one, far too many Democrats, they are the party of military weakness and weak foreign policy. You know, there was a time when there were what were called Scoop Jackson Democrats who were strong on national defense. They don't exist anymore. You know, Bernie tweeted out how our military is so much bigger than everyone else's, and so we need to dramatically downsize our military. I tweeted out today, I said, gosh, that sure would make Russia and China, North Korea and Iran really happy to weaken our military. And, you know, what possibly could go wrong if we did that?
Wow.
This Democratic Party is a party of national security weakness, number one. But number two, they're a party consumed by hatred. The dominant theme in the Democratic Party today, and those folks running for president, is hatred of Donald Trump. And we saw that most profoundly during the State of the Union address, where they refused to applaud for jobs. They refused to apply for higher wages. They refused to applaud for the lowest African-American unemployment in the history of this country and the lowest Hispanic unemployment in the history of the country.
It's nuts.
And instead, you got Nancy Pelosi standing up and ripping the speech in half. Look, I went to 4 Barack Obama State of the Union addresses. I disagreed with a lot of his policies, but I stood up, I applauded, I respected the office of the presidency because the American people had elected him. And these Democrats are just filled with partisan hatred. It's sad to see.
I know you've got a ton of stuff going on. If you want, I'll give you an extra 30 seconds or so if you want to tell me about AOC and Sanders and even Michael Bloomberg and the things that are coming out about farmers and about blacks and Hispanics. There really is a war on the blue collar in this country, isn't there?
There is, and Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're calling for banning fracking. Let me tell you what that would do. That would take away up to 14 million jobs in America, a lot of blue-collar jobs. That would take away over 1 million jobs in Texas. These guys are radical. You want to talk about devastating impact in Texas and blue-collar jobs across the country. Let me tell you how Republicans win. We are the party of jobs. We're the party of working men and women. The Democrats are the party of billionaire socialists who want to keep power, but they're willing to take away blue-collar jobs. That's wrong, and those are the stakes of this election.
TedCruz.org, TedCruz.org, TedCruz.org. That is Senator Ted Cruz, Republican, the great state of Texas. Ted, thanks a million.
Thank you, my friend. God bless.